Because it's Money Day. Well, thank you all so much for being here. I'm San Francisco Mayor London Breed, and I am here to talk a little bit about the next 2 fiscal years in our budget. Let me just first start by thanking Anna Dunning and my budget team who worked tirelessly. Can the budget team stand up? We sent them through a lot, so thank you for your work, your patience. Thank you to our controller, Ben Rosenfield, for all of your work. And I want to appreciate the Board of Supervisors who are joining us here today, but especially the Budget Chair, Connie Chan, who has worked tirelessly with us to get us to this point. Thank you so much, Supervisors. And I see the infamous Harvey Rose decided to join us here today. So, Harvey, for the love of God, don't eliminate my position. But thank you to department heads, to community members, to people who represent the city far and wide. You know, this was a very, very difficult budget for us because, as you know, we have been forced to make some really challenging changes to our budget. For the past several years, even when I was on the Board of Supervisors, we didn't see a deficit at all. So we were very fortunate. And in this particular case, we were able to cut a $780 million 2-year budget deficit while still making the kinds of investments that we know are important to the people of San Francisco, that we know are important to what we need to do to come out of a once-in-a-generation global pandemic. And I truly believe that the work that we have done together throughout this budget process will leave us in a better place, will make us stronger, but more important, it will provide the change we need to move San Francisco in a completely different direction. So I am grateful to be here with our various department heads, elected leaders, and others, because it is important to talk about it as we then turn this budget over to the Board of Supervisors to go through the process of combing through every little thing and trying to squeeze every little dollar out of the budget for what I know are their priorities. And what my hope is that when they see this budget, they realize that things that they have asked for are also a part of what we are proposing in order to build a collaborative budget where we've had to make some hard choices. So I want to put things into a little bit of perspective. Now, when I first became mayor, our budget was just around $10 billion. And now our budget that I'm introducing for this year and next year respectively is both years is $14.6 billion. And here's the thing, at the same time we're dealing with the deficit. And what does that mean? Well, our expenses are growing faster than our revenues. And we understand that there are layers of challenges to that. But one of the things that I said to my budget team and my staff in moving forward with this budget, I want to make sure that people are our priorities. We need to focus on safety and our economic recovery and development, but also we need to make sure we get to a better place with our workforce. And I'm really proud that in balancing this budget, we were still able to deliver for our nonprofit workers, our IHSS workers, our public safety officials, and other things, even though, again, we're facing a budget deficit. I wanted to get more resources in the hands of people so that they can make their own decisions about how they spend their money. And part of what we're looking at in San Francisco, to also put this into perspective, you know, for those of you who remember San Francisco back in the 70s and the 80s, you remember what our city used to look like, our neighborhoods, our downtown locations, and let's talk about that. Downtown, where Moscone Center is located, used to be all parking lots. The area where Westfield is now, there were a few single stores on the block along with Emporium Catwell and Woolworth right across the street. There was a change and a shift to think about the future and the downtown region differently at that time. And so when some of the proposals came in, many of those proposals were not things that people wanted to see happen. They didn't want their parking to go away. They couldn't imagine how you would get all those people here for conventions underground in the way and how they build Moscone Center, even recently with the Central Subway and the link between Chinatown and downtown and the Southeast community area. When we propose these big ideas and changes that will change the fabric of our city, oftentimes there is opposition, there is uncertainty, and sometimes there's fear. And what's happening in San Francisco right now is a lot of fear and a lot of narrative and a lot of things that are trying to paint a picture of San Francisco and trying to write about and talk about our city in ways where it's casting a cloud, but it's feeding into a negative narrative about what San Francisco is. And with all the work that all of you do in your neighborhoods, in this city, and all over, you know there are challenges like any major city, but you also know that there are possibilities, that there are great things happening, that there are businesses opening, that there's work being done. Will we be what we were before a global pandemic? No, but if I had told you in 2019 that we were going to be experiencing a global pandemic and we would have to shut the city down and we would still be able to instantly set up testing sites and vaccination sites and food pantries and all of this stuff that we were able to come together and do, not in years, but in weeks and in months, you would have told me I was crazy. But here in San Francisco, what we were able to accomplish demonstrates what we are able to do in the city when we come together, what is possible, and how we need to think differently about things that we never thought about before. So what is this budget about? This budget is about change. This budget is about thinking differently. We know the definition of insanity, doing the same thing and expecting a different result. We have to think differently. Everything can't just be a tax on the ballot because everyone's trying to say retail is going away because of safety, but they're also going away because of the financial uncertainty and the layers of taxes that are also contributing to destroying the retail industry, and also because of online shopping and delivery. There are layers of things that are contributing to what is happening in stores that I don't think most people in this room even step foot in. Things are changing. So what does that mean? It means open our eyes to the possibilities of what can be. Looking at our retail establishments and thinking these could be places for new lab space, or our educational institutions, or something, Instagram moments like these young kids like. It could be anything. Or with this new soccer team that you heard about that was just purchased, a women's soccer team that's coming to the Bay Area, planting that smack dab in the middle of Moscone Center, who knows? These things may not happen, but this is how we're gonna have to think. And my hope is by some of the incentives and the changes in our budget that it will help us get there. Yes, we have to deal with the challenges. We have to take care of our workforce. We have to save Laguna Honda. We have to support our nonprofit organizations. We have to provide food security. We have to take care of our kids. We have to fight for additional state and federal resources for our public transportation. We have to build 82,000 units in the next 8 years. We have to do all of this and still think about the future and moving forward. Because as much as people are saying that they hear only me talking about downtown, well, the ability to pay for all this comes from somewhere. It comes from a lot of those taxes. And how we get people and businesses back on their feet is exactly what this budget is proposing to do. So first, changes to our taxes. I want to appreciate Supervisor Ronan for coming up with a creative idea around first year free. And this first year free has provided the small businesses and brick and mortar businesses to open their doors and to not pay the ridiculous fees from the city. Office of Economic and Workforce Development has invested in build-out costs in neighborhoods like the Bayview Hunters Point, and 3rd and Newcomb is a whole nother place, Supervisor Walton, because of the work that we are doing together to invest in small businesses, because they don't have angel investors beating down their door. And when we make those investments, not only do the business owners have an opportunity, but the community, for and by the community, they have an opportunity to shop, dine in their neighborhoods, in their community. And so First Year Free is a program we will continue to support and build upon. We also plan to provide a delay in taxes for some existing businesses. Now, to be clear, 14 new taxes since 2018, and we know there are businesses that can afford to pay those taxes, but then there are others that may not. We don't want the unintended consequences of destroying our manufacturing businesses and other things that we know we need in San Francisco to develop and grow. We want things made in San Francisco, and what I'm hearing time and time again that people are saying is, well, you know, we're gonna create it in San Francisco, but we're gonna manufacture it in Nebraska somewhere because of the cost of doing business in San Francisco and the cost of doing business in the state of California. So we're proposing some delays in our taxes. We're also offering new tax breaks for new businesses because we know there are a lot of vacancies everywhere in San Francisco. And we want to, again, do our part, even though we can't control what the landlords charge, even though we're trying to work with the landlords to work with us, we can control what we do to respond to that in providing support and incentives. The other thing is we want to get rid of some of the double dipping and the things around fees and tax structures that may not make complete sense and could be a potential barrier. These things by themselves do one thing. These things combined demonstrates that San Francisco is going to be a business-friendly city. Because even though we may not be happy about the millions and billions of dollars that the CEOs make in these businesses, we are happy about the jobs they provide for the janitors and for the human resource folks and the people that are employed as a result, and the taxes that they pay to our city to help us pay for homeless services and child care services and public transportation and the things we need the most. They go hand in hand. We can't tear down business and then expect to not have an increasing deficit. So we're going to be making some investments in that area. The other thing in this budget is public safety. Now, I want to be clear because I know there's been a lot of talk about accountability, but we can have a safe city and we can have a just city. We can make sure that when those lines are crossed that people are held accountable. But even as we hold them accountable, we can still lift them up and provide them opportunities for a second chance. So incredible programs we are investing in, like Positive Direction and other places to provide people with a second chance, and programs that support abstinence-based opportunities to help people get clean and sober and get on the right path and have a safe place to live. We're investing in our wellness hubs to make sure that people have a place to go. We're changing the Department of Public Health. We're not going to keep doing the same thing. We need people to have the ability to get treatment on demand easier. The street medicine teams and the things that we're going to do to help those struggling. But at the end of the day, the open air drug dealing, the violence, where I have had friends lose their lives just trying to protect their block so that people aren't distributing and selling drugs on their block and wanting to see things better in the Tenderloin. The accountability is coming. And this is why we are making investments in our police department to make sure that our rates are competitive, to make sure that we have incentives to not only attract officers and people who want to work in the police department, but to retain them. And what I say to those who may want to criticize law enforcement and the police department in San Francisco, don't talk about it, be about it. Join the San Francisco Police Department. Be the change you want to see. Be that community police officer that everyone is asking for. Be the person to step up and say, I'm going to be a different kind of police officer if that's what you want to see. Because that's what we need in San Francisco. When somebody is shot, an ambassador is not the person who is going to show up because we have to protect them too. So our police department will be invested in, will be supported, and will be held accountable too. And we are investing in alternatives to policing because we know mental health is a real challenge. We know the psychosis that occurs as a result of the drug use is destroying the fabric of our city. We see people out there every single day, and there are hardworking people of San Francisco who work in our various city departments who are showing up and dealing with this, and we need to show them respect and love too for all the work that they're trying to do to help people. And I want to appreciate Urban Alchemy for their amazing advocacy and the work that they've done as some of our premier community ambassadors. The same people who were out there once, maybe using the drugs, maybe dealing the drugs, maybe arrested and involved in the criminal justice system, are now a part of the solution, which is exactly what should be happening. Ambassadors for and by the community. So it will be a balance, investing in alternatives, investing in programs, investing in treatment, investing in law enforcement, making sure the resources are there, making sure it's fair, equitable, and balanced, and making sure we turn things around for our city. Yesterday, I talked about some investments in homelessness. Now, of course, not everyone is going to be happy about the decisions that I made to take resources that are not being used and spend them on people that we know need help and support now, and I don't really care. Because at the end of the day, we need to take the money we have and use it for the people we need to help now. We can't wait for the people we need to help in the future. And so investments in trying to get to a 50% reduction in unsheltered homelessness means hard decision, hard changes, because you know what it means? People like Mama T, who I met yesterday at the cabin community. It means people like Mama T, who was sleeping on the streets, who's a senior in our community, who deserves to live in dignity. It means she gets a roof over her head. And I'm willing to take on that fight any given day at any time. So despite our budget cuts, this budget includes resources to ensure that we have beds that we can open now, shelter beds, housing, permanent housing solutions, and resources to ensure that people who are struggling don't become homeless in the first place. All of the things that we need to do to make significant change. And I want to talk a little bit about our fentanyl response, because, I want to just push back on the myth that we're not coordinated, that we're not doing anything, that nothing is happening. And I want to be clear that we can't tell you everything. It's not because I don't want to tell you everything, but it's because there are layers to all of this. And what I don't want are the people that we're going after to know exactly what we're doing. So the same thing we did during the pandemic, I didn't know everything sometimes, and I didn't come out here and tell you things that weren't true. I waited till I had the facts. I waited till it was appropriate to share. I didn't want to cause panic and hysteria, and I think that the same is going to happen with this thing we're dealing with around fentanyl. So what I ask is patience and understanding, because we are coordinating. We are working with the Department of Emergency Management, Department of Public Health, the police department, our state, federal officials, and others to make an impact on not just behind the scenes and what's happening on a larger scale with the various drug cartels, but also to deal with the challenges on the ground. It is a really very hard issue, and it's not as simple as a treatment program or a second chance or a job opportunity. It's not that simple. It's very complex as we know it. And so what that means is, yes, we have our treatment programs and the investments we're making. Yes, we are going to use law enforcement in a creative way to get drugs off the street, to get weapons off the streets, to do what we can to hold people accountable, and also our willingness to give them a second chance. But we're not just going to keep doing the same thing. We have got to change it. We have got to get aggressive, and we've got to do whatever it takes to get our streets under control so that they're safe for everyone who lives, breathes, works, and does business in the Tenderloin. And I know some of these decisions are not going to be popular, but again, I don't care. I didn't become mayor to be afraid to do this job the way it needs to be done. I didn't become mayor to stroke the egos of the most active and the loudest voices. I became mayor because those people in the Tenderloin are my people who I grew up with, who babysat me, who looked out for me, who took care of community, and they need our help and our respect and our support. So let me tell you what we're going to do around fentanyl. Expanding our law enforcement staffing to shut down open-air drug markets, and it's already started. As I said, launching new programs to make sure that people can access service and we bring them into care. And I want to put the people who are doing these services on notice that we're doing a deeper dive, and if you're delivering, you get funded and then some. If you are not delivering, we're taking away dollars, because enough is enough. Accountability has to be a part of that too. We're going to be expanding our health services to provide more support for those struggling with addiction, and this is going to be the hardest part, we know. And we have to address the neighborhood impacts by providing non-law enforcement support to keep the streets safe and clean, like we're doing with folks who are like a part of urban alchemy. So those are just a few things around this particular issue where we're making budget investments. And I want to also say that we're going to keep making those investments to keep our streets clean, investing more resources in graffiti and road repaving. We have to keep investing in our parks, and we will do so. We have some of the best parks anywhere in the world. Our libraries, where those are places of sanctuary, and in fact, if you download the app, you can get a free book to read anytime you want or listen on audiobooks. Children and family investments will continue with educator pay and vouchers and investments in facilities. Our climate action plan is really on track to get us to 100% greenhouse gas emission free in this city before the state by 2040. And our goal is to also continue to keep our transportation system running in the face of a massive fiscal cliff. And we are definitely trying to appeal to our state partners and others to support us so that we can ensure that our transportation system is robust so we can get people back to the office as we begin to push for transformative change. So there's a budget book this thick that you can read, and you can see everything that we're doing for all the different departments. I, again, want to really thank the city department heads because I actually squeezed as much money as I could out of most of them, and many of them typically would not provide cuts. Even when I asked, but this time they did, and it made a world of difference in balancing this budget. It seemed like it was seamless, but it wasn't. And I just want to also say, I know there was a lot that was said here that needed to be said, but at the end of the day, again, I want to go back to reminding us who we are, because we can't keep letting other people write the story. We can't keep letting other people talk about San Francisco the way that they want to talk about San Francisco when we know what San Francisco is. So I challenge all of you, tell the story. Talk about the experiences that you have in your neighborhoods, not just the bad ones, but the good ones. Tell the story of the beautiful places that just opened, the new businesses and the new opportunities. Tell the story of the goodness of our city. Because even though there are challenges that exist, what I appreciate so much is that when the time comes to invest in a shelter, we come together. When the time comes to help somebody in need, we come together. When the time comes to support a business from closing, we come together. Yes, hard decisions had to be made in this budget. A lot of sacrifice in this budget. So that means that every dollar cannot be wasted. It has to be used to change San Francisco for the better. Not just the narrative of what people write, but how people feel, what we're delivering, what we're changing. You hear all these stories, but San Francisco is still on the top 10 places to visit. You hear all these stories, but our airport is still the #1 in the country. You hear all these stories, but between 2019 and 2022, no other Bay Area county saw a reduction in unsheltered homelessness, and we reduced it by 15%. So as we think about moving through this budget process, as we think about the work that we need to do, let's not do it the same way. Let's not advocate for the same thing. Let's advocate for change. Let's advocate for something different. Let's think bigger. Who would have thought that Mission Bay, which was where people went to play golf at a golf range and was just a railroad, would become the home of the national champions, the Golden State Warriors, and concerts and events, and University of California, San Francisco. That area is buzzing Who would have thought that Pier 70, which was empty and vacant, and no one went there, over 150 years, closed off to the public, beautiful waterfront place where ships were being built and repaired, and now it's open to the public, and satellite company is developing and building and manufacturing. Who would have thought that the freeway that blocked the beautiful views and put a cloud on the ferry building area, who would have thought that after the '89 earthquake, when everyone thought the city was destroyed and things were over, that now the waterfront is one of the most sought after destinations of San Franciscans and people who visit? Who would have thought? We're San Franciscans. We would have thought. We know what's possible. We know what we're capable of. We know what we can do. We know that when we come together, anything is possible. So let's transform San Francisco and let's make magic happen. Thank you.